and breathe in the peace of the evening. And another deep breath and breathe in the peace of us being here together. As we welcome and usher in Shabbat with the lighting of the candles, page 120.
We'll have to get them lit first.
Why don't we switch roles?
Do you want to switch roles?
Well,
That sounds
I think
good.
you should
How about
sing
if you
and
do
not me?
one and I'll do... Well, yeah, I'll sing it, but maybe
You
if
guys
we...
don't want me to sing.
We'll see. Maybe this side. Thank you. There we go.
Worked.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. We continue with Lecha Dodi, page 138. We will do verses 1, 2, 5, and 9 and rise on the last verse, page 138.
Kala
let's rise.
בואי ושלום, עטרת בלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה.
As we have welcomed Shabbat, let's welcome each other. If you are here in person, please welcome a friend you haven't seen in a long time. Welcome someone you don't know. If you are online, Matthew will be opening up breakout rooms.
Shabbat Shalom.
I think we are.
We're back from
we
breakout.
Back? Are we back from breakout rooms? Or are we waiting?
We're back.
Yes, we're back.
Hello,
We're back in person and
Zoom.
back. You wondered why we were just standing here looking at you, smiling. Now you know. Please rise if you are able for the Baruch, our call to worship on page 146. Be seated as I continue on the bottom of page 149. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is an hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light and noise. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother or sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. We rise for the Shema, page 152.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We join together in the Song of Freedom and Redemption, Micha Mocha, page 158.
כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
You may be seated as we continue with Hashkivenu, page 160. Bottom, page 162.
ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. מקדשי מקדשי שבי
Please rise if you're able for the Amidah beginning on page 164, and we will continue together through page 170.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Ve'koneh hakol Ve'zocher chasdei avot ve'imahot U'mevii geula livnei bneihem Leman shemo ve'ahava Melech ozer u'moshia u'magen Baruch ata Adonai Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah Ata gibor le'olam Adonai Mechayeh hakol ata Rav lehoshia Morid hatal Mechalkel chaim bechesed Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim Somech noflim verofeh cholim Umatir asurim Umekayem emunato Lishenei afar Michamocha bal geburot Umidom melach Melech meimit umechayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol Baruch ata Adonai Mechayeh hakol Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh U'kadoshim bechol yom Li'ahalelucha selah Baruch ata Adonai Ha'el hakadosh.
You may be seated. Take some time for silent prayer, whether you use the words on the page through 180 or whatever is in your heart. every Shabbat we pray for peace and for wholeness, and they seem sometimes very far away. And yet we are reminded that we are God's partners in bringing healing and wholeness and peace with the everyday gestures of love and of being present for those who need us and for caring for those brokenhearted, broken-spirited, or in need of healing of body. And so as we turn to our healing prayer on page 382 with the words from our Torah portion this week, we think of all those in need of healing of body, heart, or soul, and those who care for them.
רפאנו אדוני ונרפא, הושיענו וניוושע, אל קרוב לכל קרב, אך קרוב לרעיו אישו. אל נא רפאנה, הושיע את עמך וברך את נחלתך, ורעם ונשאם עד העולם. מי שברך אבותינו, מי שברך אמותינו, אנא אדוני הושיענה.
Hope you have your grape juice or wine handy. If not, I know our usher, Steve, is on it. We turn to the Kiddush, page 123. And once you have your beverage, please rise. And you can always do what we do with Shabbat Junior and hold up your Kos Kiddush, your hand with a make-believe wine or grape juice. Page 123.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו, ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו. זיכרון למעשה וראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון רצון, הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת. לחיים.
What a vintage. As old as that joke is, the wine is always new. All right, you sit down, relax, while I teach a little Torah. Shabbat Shalom. So as I mentioned, the lines from our healing prayer, El Na Refana La, come from an incident in this week's Torah portion, Baha'alotecha, and I don't expect you to say that one after me or even remember it. It's one of our tongue twisters of a Torah portions. And the story it comes from is a little enigmatic and maybe even disturbing. Moses' siblings, Miriam and Aaron, dispute his leadership. But what they're complaining about is unclear. It might even be racially motivated. The Torah says, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses on account of the Cushite woman he had married, for he had married a Cushite woman. They said, has the Eternal spoken only through Moses? Has God not spoken through us as well? So God hears their complaint, and he rebukes them for their hubris, telling them that his relationship with Moses is unlike his relationship with any other prophet. And when God's presence is withdrawn from Aaron and Miriam and Moses, there is Miriam, stricken with leprosy. You might know the rest of the story. Moses pleads with God, El na rafan na la, God, please, please heal her. And so God relents and sends her out of the camp 7 days, after which she was readmitted healed. So if you're a little confused by this story, anyone confused at all? Yeah? You're not alone. Even the rabbis are confused by this story. It raises far more questions than it does answers. And in case you were so confused that you don't know what questions I think should be asked, I'm going to ask them for you. Why was Miriam punished and not Aaron and Miriam? Didn't they both complain? What was this weird complaint that Miriam and Aaron brought? Were they demanding more access to power? Were they upset by Moses' marriage? And who was the Cushite woman? Cush is the Hebrew term for a nation in southeast of Egypt. But it's also used in the Hebrew Bible to refer to anyone who's dark-skinned, specifically African, but not always. So, is it Zipporah, who is the only wife that is mentioned by name of Moses? In fact, apparently the only wife of Moses, because she's Midianite, which is Semitic, which is the same, very closely related to the Israelites. Or had Moses perhaps taken another wife that we just didn't know about? The Torah is really bad at mentioning women, if you didn't know that already, so it's possible. Are they concerned maybe that he's marrying outside the tribe? And what does that all have to do with their status as prophets? Because that seems to be the heart of the complaint. Could it be that they're all his older siblings? Perhaps it's a case of sibling rivalry or jealousy. What is clear is that race, gender, power, and status are all intertwined here. So all of this lack of clarity, it's spiritual gold. The more difficult a passage, the more interpretations it opens itself up to, and the more opportunities we have to learn about ourselves. So tonight, let's take this somewhat disturbing incident and reread it with the rabbis of the first millennium of the Common Era. The rabbis used storytelling called midrash to address problems in holy text. First, why was only Miriam punished? They pick up on a linguistic oddity. The Torah says that Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses, but the Hebrew word tidaber is in the feminine singular rather than the masculine plural as you would expect with two people that includes a man. So the rabbis interpreted this to mean that Miriam instigated the speech. Why? Well, because she's a woman and she knew something that men couldn't know. Namely, that Moses' wife had a grievance against him. He wasn't fulfilling his obligation with her to be fruitful and multiply, the first commandment in the Torah. Thus, the rabbis address another issue. What why did Miriam and Aaron weren't speaking against Moses? They were discussing Moses on account of the Cushite woman. They were talking about Moses and his wife, a somewhat reasonable rereading of the Hebrew. And we actually know that Moses believed that staying apart from your spouse was necessary to achieve a high level of sanctity, high enough to encounter God. How do we know this? Because Moses added it to the strictures that he passed on from God to the Israelites at Mount Sinai in order that they could be in a state of purity to meet God. So Moses clearly thought that not touching your spouse was important. We didn't hear that from God. We heard that from Moses. So in the ancient book, Sefer Zuta, Rabbi Shimon connects this incident in our Torah portion to the one also in our Torah portion immediately before it, when all of the elders get a moment of prophecy. That God shares Moses' prophetic spirit with all the elders, the 70 elders of the tribes of Israel. So Rabbi Shimon says, it is said that when the elders were appointed, all Israel lit lamps and made merry, because 70 elders had received the divine spirit. And when Miriam saw the lamps, she said, happy are these, and happy their wives. But Zipporah, Moses' wife, said to her, do not say happy their wives, but woe to their wives. For from the day that the Holy One, blessed be he, spoke with Moses, your brother, he has not been struck with me according to halakha. They were sleeping apart. Miriam consulted with Aaron, and they spoke together on the matter, as Torah says, as I just read to you. And Miriam and Aaron spoke about Moses. And what were they speaking about? Over this business of his seclusion from his wife. That is why they continued saying, Moses is arrogant. For the Holy One, blessed be he, does not speak with Moses alone, but rather he has already spoken with many prophets and with us. And we have not separated ourselves from our spouses, as he is separated. As it says in our portion, they said, has the Eternal spoken only through Moses? Has not God spoken through us as well? So I love this midrash because it makes Miriam look good. And I'm a little biased towards Miriam. Miriam and Aaron weren't being racist or feeling threatened by their brother's power. They were calling on Moses to follow the first commandment. They were in the right. So if they were in the right, why was Miriam punished? There's a very important concept in Judaism that words can create and words can destroy. And one must therefore be careful not to engage in lashon hara, bad speech, harmful speech. Usually lashon hara means gossip, but it can mean any harmful speech, including slander, racist speech, incitement. In the rabbi's imagination, Miriam was punished for lashon hara because she started it. She instigated the speech. She started it, so she got punished for it. Miriam becomes the example of what not to do. In another work of Midrash, we get this legal lesson. Indeed, speech is an example of the legal concept of kal v'chomer, that what applies in a lesser case applies in a greater case. For just as Miriam, who did not intend to speak against her brother to shame him, but rather to make him praiseworthy, nor to reduce fruitfulness and fertility, but to increase them, and who spoke privately to him and not publicly, even she was so punished, so too, one who intends to speak against his fellows to shame him and not to praise him, and to reduce mitzvot and fertility in the world and not to increase them, and who speaks publicly and not privately, how much the more so will this person be punished? So in the rabbinic imagination, Miriam wasn't criticizing Moses for marrying a Cushite woman. She was criticizing him for the sake of his wife. It wasn't racism, but female partisanship. So what was the lashon hara? What was the evil speech here? Was it that she was rebelling against Moses with Aaron? Or were the rabbis glossing over the offensiveness in the Torah precisely because they believed there was underlying xenophobia in the text? By minimizing the wrong in Miriam's and Aaron's speech, the rabbis were actually emphasizing the power that speech has to do harm. According to Genesis, God created with words. If the world was created with words, so might it be destroyed. Our rabbis spent a lot of time talking about lashon hara and defining it and warning against it. Why? Because gossiping, which is normally translated as, it's human. We do it. But gossip is not the only form of harmful speech. We are seeing in our country a rise in hate speech, and that is definitely Lashon Hara. Just as to gossip is human, so is it human to have prejudices. Of course, human beings we're more comfortable with people like us, and of course we'll eventually develop fear or discomfort or even stereotypes and prejudice against the other. And as those stereotypes are passed down and become fear and become entwined in human cultures, each culture develops its own form of xenophobia and racism against foreigners. And as Jews, we're the world's foreigners. We have perhaps suffered more from xenophobia and persecution than any other people. But as Miriam and Aaron show us in this portion, we are also just as likely to succumb to xenophobia in all its forms because we're human. And as we approach this national holiday, this new one-year-old national holiday of Juneteenth, our American and Jewish heritages demand self-examination. Miriam's and Aaron's words come to remind us that xenophobia directed at dark-skinned Africans existed even among the ancient Israelites. But if one confronts one's personal prejudices and seeks out the other to learn that person's story, perhaps we can go from complaining about the Cushite woman, as Miriam did and Aaron did in Torah, to advocating for our friends, as Miriam does, and the rabbi's transformation of this story. Dr. Aaron Lieb-Smokler shared a teaching that I think is relevant from Netivot Shalom, a 20th century Hasidic rabbi. He extrapolated on the specially prepared oil used for lighting the menorah, which was highly pressed. And he said a Jew must press themselves just like that oil, and break their hearts before the Blessed One. On account of this personal pressure, they will come to illumination. Just like the refined pounded olive oil was used only for the menorah in the temple and not for any other purpose, so too personal pounding must be a way that brings self-illumination, and not pounding that might lead to lowering, to despair, depression, or God forbid, distraction from worship. One must pound oneself in order to purify oneself, not to bring despair, but to bring illumination. Or to put another way, we must engage in the difficult work of self-examination, not to bring self-doubt, but to make ourselves stronger, purer, and readier to bring illumination and walk in God's paths. And we do that by reaching out to someone who feels like a stranger and making that person a friend. Shabbat Shalom and happy Juneteenth weekend. If you want to uncover the character of Miriam with me, we are exploring that in Torah study tomorrow. Please rise for Aleinu, page 598. .586.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We remain standing for the Kaddish. We recall tonight, in the period of Shiva, Lorena Socorro Duran and Beverly Tannenbaum. And we are in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning for Angelita Galvan Freeman and Polly Sloan. And we recall the anniversary, the yard site, this Shabbat for Ruth Britt, Edward Cohen, Milton H. Cohen, Helen Cooper, Dorothy Covell, Andrea Delisle, Lionel Edison, Ezat Elihu, Trevor Fish, Anne Gladstone, Bernhard Gottlieb, Marvin Leonard Grant, Boris Gurevich, Sadie Hyman, Fletcher Jones, Richard Cantor, Pauline Kartas, Israel Kaufman, Larry Donald Krause, Daniel J. Krause, Russell Krupp, Henry Krupp, Sadie Mondell, Johanna Rao, Lois Rosenblum, Stan Ross, Edward Salkin, Anne Schreiber, Sandra Schwartzberg, Henry Shalkoff, Christine Silverman, Meredith Smith, L. William Spear, Ethel Ulaner, Sharon Wiedberg, Eva Wexler, Bonnie Wiederman, and George Udis. We also remember those who died due to baseless hatred here and around the world, and those who have died from COVID-19. Zichronam livracha, may their memories forever be a blessing. We join together, page 598.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון, חיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen.
You may be seated. I'll accept our president, Adrian Cohen, who has some announcements for us.
What a beautiful service tonight. Thank you, Rabbi and Cantor and Paul for your wonderful music, and always Steve Fink and Sue Penn for their wonderful smiling faces. Greeting everyone. Shabbat Shalom to everyone here in person and everyone on all of our other options, Zoom streaming website. Tomorrow is Torah study, online only, with Rabbi Phillips. And happy Father's Day to all of our fathers and father figures. Adult Education Wednesday night is done for the school year. And stay tuned for next year's calendar because I know some wonderful things are going to be coming up. Next Saturday, we will have Torah study in person in the annex with our occasional Saturday morning Shabbat service at 10:30 a.m. in the Sun and Shine Family Sanctuary. All are welcome, and I'm going to be at Torah study for the first time in a really long time, so hope to see all of you there. We're going to have to get some extra bagels, I hope. Rosh Chodesh Tammuz with Cantor Waltzman will be on Thursday, June 30th at 7 p.m. And very exciting news, Red, White, and Jew is back in person on Friday, July 1st. You don't want to miss that. There is no traditional barbecue dinner following the service, but there will be a young family picnic for those who have children in the 0 to 5 category. We have several wonderful young faces here tonight. So young families can RSVP for the picnic on our website. This year we will be instituting a new renewals process for dues, and you're going to receive an email over the next few weeks explaining the process. And if you just want to bring in a check, I'm sure they can accommodate that too. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful weekend and happy summer. It's beautiful here. Very fortunate.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Thank you.
Shalom. Thank you, Adrian. Please rise for our closing song of Say Shalom, page 180.
Amen.
take out those challahs as we prepare for motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you, Cantor.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Lovely to
Thank
see
you,
all. Shabbat
Paul.
shalom.